Good morning and welcome to the programme. We hope you are all very well this morning. Hope you had a good weekend. We want to hear from you this morning on any different topic. Please text us 083 3333 975, or you can call the programme. Audrey is waiting for your calls on 051 846 123. People have been texting all weekend and about the difficulties, obviously, of cocooning. We're going to be talking to Dr. Mark Rowe about that in a second. A texter a few minutes ago. Damien, could you please tell me if a person over 70 can go for a walk? They're one of the specific questions that we're going to be asking Dr. Mark Rowe. Special mention this morning to everybody working on the Passage East car ferry, a vital service for so many people. I know a lot of nurses and medical personnel from Wexford that travel over every day on the ferry, and a special mention to everybody working on the Passage East car ferry. You're doing marvellous work and fair play to you, and keep it going, and you really are doing an essential job in so many people's opinion. Also a special mention to the Parnell Medical Centre. Those that are in the medical centre in Parnell and other medical centres. I know some of the people working there. Special mention to all of you. Others have said, will you please play a request for those working in the laundry at University Hospital Waterford and all those connected with keeping the place so clean and tidy. And to anybody out there who's working in a factory or working in a call or contact centre. A lot of people have been in touch over the weekend regarding such places of work, whether they're essential or not. I know there's some factories outside of Waterford and in Waterford that have decided to close down following the government regulations and announcement on Friday night. So let us know, please, about that. My understanding is that we'll come to those matters later on this morning. Firstly, I'm going to go straight to Dr. Mark Rowe. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Damien. How are you? You don't usually call me doctor. I was christened Mark, so that'll do fine.
OK, we'll go on first name terms. Mark, appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Mark, we may get a few texts from people regarding specific medical matters. I want to thank you for coming on air because I know you're very busy this morning and giving us your time.
You're welcome.
Tell me,
in it together, as they say.
Yeah, in this together, you said that. And a message you said to me the other day, which was so important, is that emotional contagion is very important right now, positive and negative. It's worth highlighting this. Tell me, please, what you mean by that.
Well, what's really interesting, Damien, is that from research, we know that babies, from the time we're babies, we are hardwired to imitate and mimic and copy those people around us. So through sort of complex sort of physiological and neurological processes, what happens is we are very good as human beings at copying emotions that other people are experiencing. And then we feel those emotions, and then we act them out in our own behaviours, and then we pass them on to other people, and then they come back to us. What that means really is that we all need to be very mindful of the sources of information we're listening to. We should listen to authentic, real sources. We should be mindful of the really seriously negative impact that too much bad news, that too much, really doomsday scenario thinking can have on your own mental health and well-being. Because emotion can be contagious out to 3 degrees of separation. And that is really, really important. So you really need to be mindful of your social media. You need to be mindful of, really, I suppose for everybody, it's to make sure that there's a balance. You don't want to stick your head in the sand. You want to stay informed. You want to stay aware. But make sure you're getting the right information. And make sure as well that you counterbalance that by, restricting how much news you listen to. Make sure you make time every day to lighten up, to maybe watch a bit of comedy, to have some good quality friends, family that you can talk to. I think that's really, really important.
And can I give you an example of that? I was talking to my parents last night up in Wicklow, and again, my mother was going to watch the 9 o'clock news, but she'd seen the 6 o'clock news and she felt that she didn't want to watch it. And I said to her, don't watch it. If you've seen the 6 o'clock news, there's no need to watch the 9 o'clock news. Things are not going to change that much. And then another person who is abroad, in Waterford, but has a person working in England, in the medical services there, they may look at Sky News, for example, to see what the update is. Again, you may watch that for maybe 10 minutes during the day, but there's no point in watching it constantly because it doesn't do anybody any good. Isn't that right?
Well, it's not just that it won't necessarily do you any good, but it can actually, it can put that red button in your brain. We all have one called the amygdala. It can just cause it to be on chronic kind of a stressed state. And that really can make you much more irritable, much more short-tempered. And that sort of sense of panic and that sense of negativity and anxiety really, really does spread. And people can become overwhelmed by it. So it's really, really important simply just to be mindful of how easy it is to catch negative emotions. And particularly now that we are all physically distanced and we're all restricted to within 2 kilometres of our home, except for emergency workers and so on. What's happening is that, more people are feeling quite lonely and disconnected. And I think that's really important. If we can all play a role. Anyone listening can reach out to their friends, make a call. People would love to hear from somebody, particularly if there's somebody living alone. And when you are lonely, you are much more susceptible to a dip in your mood, and that dip in your mood can really become a sort of a downward spiral. So this is something that isn't easily seen, but it is really, really important to mention this, that we do need to have people around us that are going to lift our spirits,
yes,
that are going to support us, strengthen us. We are all in this together, as I said earlier on, and really it's by being together while staying apart physically that we'll all get through it.
And a few very specific questions, Mark, if you wouldn't mind. A person over the age of 70 has texted. Can they actually go for a walk? No.
Well, they're not supposed to, because they're
not supposed to.
Like, the truth is, 70 is not old for
no,
many
it's
people.
Not
many
at all.
people are really, more like 50 when they're 70. But the government, and these are the experts we have to listen to, have said that people aged over 70, according to your date of birth, should really be cocooning themselves and not going out, which is, I know, a major inconvenience for people. But people just need to be more imaginative about how you get some exercise. If you have a back garden, get out into your back garden, get some vitamin D and sunlight and fresh air as much as you can. And there's lots of really imaginative ways that you can exercise. Go onto YouTube, you can see how to do a little sort of stretching workout, jumping jacks, walking up and down your stairs. There's lots of ways you can cleverly stay active without going outdoors.
Okay, another text in. Is it safe for my daughter, who's in her 40s, who has Crohn's disease and on injections, and she works in a medical facility? Should she be working? Is Crohn's disease considered a high-risk category from what you're seeing on the government website?
Well, while it isn't specifically listed, it would be a condition where you would tend to be immunosuppressed. By that we mean that your immune system would be weaker than normal, and particularly if that person is on specific injectable medication for that condition. What she should do is she should really ring her own GP today and have a one-to-one conversation with her own doctor, who will be best able to advise her. But she's right to be absolutely very cautious. Okay.
Another texter to 083 3333 975 says the HSE website is quite confusing for this person. And this idea of at-risk groups, and that ties in with just what you've said a second ago. For example, those with diabetes, blood pressure issues, should they be staying at home or should they be going to work?
Well, I think if you have, depending on your age and depending on what type of chronic health condition you have, it's very, very hard to generalise with these types of things, Damien. Really, each person needs to talk to their own doctor and decide really what the risks and benefits are for each person, which can vary enormously.
Yeah. Another person, I'm 72, staying at home. I have a slight cough, no temperature, have pain in my throat. Should I contact my GP?
Absolutely.
You definitely think so? No question there. How have you been managing, Mark, in your facility?
Well, I always say how lucky I feel I work with an amazing team of people here in the practice up here in the health park. Really, really talented, and we're all really supporting each other as best we can. We're doing a lot of work on the phones. We have people in personal protective equipment, seeing people that need to be seen, and we're just doing what we do. And I mean, that's what doctors and healthcare professionals do. They want to be of service. We want to provide good quality care to people that need it. And, for me, it's very, very heartening, Damien, to see what's happening, around Waterford and just to see and read anecdotally what's happening around Ireland, how this terrible pandemic is bringing people together in a way I haven't seen before, in terms of how people are really reaching out to support each other at a very practical level. And we are really all in this together, and everybody is a vital cog in the wheel, whether you're a medic or a frontline healthcare worker, or whether you're in public service broadcasting, or whether you're a delivery man or a postman, or whatever you're doing, or especially if you're following the government rules and guidelines and doing your part by staying at home and staying away from everybody else. I mean, it was interesting on Morning Ireland this morning, they were saying how the number of confirmed cases is going up, the number of confirmed contacts that each person has gone dramatically down. I think it's gone down from 20 to about 5, which shows that people really are taking on board the really importance of the physical distancing and the social isolation, and that's the only hope we have.
And if anybody has any specific queries, people with different types of asthma in terms of chronic or otherwise, it may be controlled, it may not be controlled, to contact your doctor. Talk to your doctor specifically.
Talk to your GP, because it might be a timely opportunity for your GP to look at, are you on the right dose of preventative medication, should you be monitoring your asthma more closely or whatever. So there's a lot of other unintended benefits can come out of that conversation as well.
Can I just ask you finally, please, sure. Mark, I really, really feel, and so many people have said this to me over the weekend, for those that are over 70, apart from not just the physical order, effectively being told to stay in your home, you can't go for a walk, and that stress of seeing what you see on the telly and hearing of people that are over 70, and this kind of stigmatising or bracketing of those in that cohort, and some of those that have been admitted to hospital in that cohort, and that worry and that fear and that, I suppose, difficulty accepting that you're in a cohort that's been bracketed in a certain way, that the percentage of those that may suffer from this has increased. For anybody over 70 listening to this morning, what can you say to them to reassure them that we are all in this together?
Well, I mean, we are all in this together. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, the numbers I gave you there about confirmed cases have much fewer contacts now than they did a few weeks ago. So people are paying attention to the advice. What I would say, Damien, this is really important. Feelings of hope far outweigh feelings of fear in terms of allowing you to best cope with this situation. So, spring always follows winter. This too shall pass. This is not going to last forever. We're talking about a few months here, I would think at most. I would say the max 3 to 6 months. But I mean, I think, we're getting on top of it right now, and I think that's really important. Don't suppress, don't block, don't fight any feelings of fear or anxiety that you have, because what you resist will persist, and really emotions need motion. So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling fearful, if you're feeling anxious, allow it to flow through you, because when you do acknowledge how you're feeling, for example, Damien, if you say, I feel fearful, I feel stressed, I feel anxious, don't feel guilty about that. That's absolutely normal. But by acknowledging and recognizing how you're feeling, you're going a great way towards dissolving it. And then you can take some very practical steps. Ring a good friend. Share how you're feeling with your friend. Don't go alone. Be kind to those people around you. Stay grateful. There's some very good slowing your breathing exercises you can do that can allow you to feel much more calm. You could try some meditation. Lighten up. Watch some comedy, and hang in there. Let's not catastrophize here by getting out into the future that it hasn't yet come for any of us. Let's just stay present. Let's focus one day at a time. It is really, really the way that we can get through this, because none of us know what's ahead next month, next year, but all we have to deal with is today. So let's get through today and let tomorrow take care of itself. That's the best thing I can say, because that's what I'd be doing myself.
Dr. Mark Rowe, thank you very much to you and your family and all your staff, and patients, mind yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. Bye.
Thank you very much. A person texted me last week a word, and I thought it was a very nice phrase, to edge through every day. Let's just edge through every day. Kathy Sheridan had an opinion piece in the Irish Times over the weekend regarding this, not to stigmatise the elderly, and this is so, so important. And for anybody who's over 70 listening to this, we are with you. We really, really are, and we know so many people. I'm not going to mention another person's name, but my thoughts are with a person I know in another county this morning who returned from Cheltenham 2 weeks ago and is currently in intensive care. Keep your texts and your comments coming in. I will be playing a few special messages for people in a little while and taking all your texts and comments. 083 333 975. Welcome back to the programme. In a second, I am going to be talking to Breathe Smith about remote abortions. So if you have young ears listening to this, you may not want to listen to it. If you have issues relating to that, we will be talking about that in a few minutes. Just to remind people or say something, that a woman has phoned the reception here. Her business in city centre is closing down. She's a small amount of fresh vegetables left over and she doesn't want to throw them out. If you want to know where this is and in terms of donations, you can call Audrey on 051 872248. Breda has phoned in to say the government should be congratulated for what they are doing. Others saying that there's still a lot of people going to different places at weekends, such as Portlaw, up around the woods and different places. Can you please give a special mention to security men in City Square? They're doing a great job and I know them quite well. So yes. Breed Smith, good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good to talk to you again. You are Solidarity People Before Profit TD. The government has said that Minister Harris announced on Thursday last he's going to temporarily revise the existing model of care legislation, which regulates how a medical professional may grant an abortion. So he made the announcement during the Dáil debate on Thursday. Can you explain, please, what was the situation before Thursday and what is the situation now?
Okay, since the legislation was brought in following the vote to repeal the Eighth Amendment from the Constitution, what's allowed for in this country in terms of being able to procure an early abortion is that you have a right to go to your GP to seek the abortion pill up to 9 weeks of pregnancy. And that the law stated that the GP must have a GP examination, and then there's a 3-day waiting period, and you return for a second visit, and the GP provides you with the first of 2 pills that you're required to take in order to have an early abortion, and you take the second one home, and you're given instructions as to when to take it at home and what, how to take care of yourself at home. So with the coronavirus crisis that we're in at the moment, there's 2 problems with that way of dealing with early abortion by medication. The first is an obvious one, that doctors are actually out the door busy with dealing with urgent cases around the coronavirus, and it's very, very difficult for them to fit in other types of healthcare. And the second is the question of contact and the unnecessary contact between a woman seeking the pill for abortion and possibly the secretary or the nurse or the doctor in the clinic, not just once but twice within 3 days.
Okay.
So it presents a challenge, and we put in an amendment to the legislation to say that telemedicine should be allowed, that a woman should be able to phone her doctor, have an interview with the doctor, and then have the pill administered by sending it out to her in the post with clear instructions how to take it. And it's worth saying that this is how thousands of women procured early abortion through pills before we repealed the Eighth Amendment. They just did it illegally over the internet. So it's very possible, and it seems Simon Harris has said that he has legal advice that the question of a doctor examining a woman can be done by telemedicine. It's not strictly just by visit.
And is there a time limit on this section within the legislation for how long this is going to last?
Well, I think all sections of all interpretations,
yes,
would mean that for the duration of the coronavirus, that would definitely be allowed, that interpretation would be allowed. And then I think in general, women would prefer to see their doctor. It's not that they're looking to fast track this. They would, in fact, prefer to see their doctor because you always feel safer. It's somebody you can talk to. If it's a crisis pregnancy, an unwanted pregnancy, you probably need to talk to someone. So I think, in fairness, things should return to normal, as with everything else, when and if we come out of this crisis and back to the same position that we were in before in terms of delivery of medicine.
Pro-life campaigners have described the changes as a risk to the lives of pregnant women. Eilish Mulroy, for example, said, "It's wholly unacceptable the way Minister Harris has slipped in his proposed changes to the model of care without prior consultation. An almost identical proposal to what he presented was rejected in Britain last week out of concern for the adverse effect," she says, "it could have on the welfare and safety of women." Your response to that?
I don't mean to be petty, but it's ironic that pro-life campaigners are this concerned about women having early abortions when they had no problem with them having to illegally procure the abortion over the internet, the abortion pill over the internet for years before we repealed the 8th, and they campaigned against the repealing of the 8th, which would make abortion safe and legal for women in this country. So I just find it a bit hypocritical. But having said that, I think in general it is better to go to your doctor. But these are extraordinary circumstances. And should you not be able to get your doctor, or should you be, for example, having to self-isolate, then there has to be alternatives provided. I'd much prefer women to see women visit their doctor for all sorts of pregnancy care, including the right to have an abortion at an early stage in this country. But if they have to self-isolate, if it's not possible, if the doctor can't see them, then there has to be an alternative means, because pregnancy is time sensitive and crisis pregnancy is equally time sensitive, so you can't just leave it waiting around.
I understand, and again, I'm not going to rehash the debate that we've had obviously on this, Breed, but you can see where, or can you see where some of the pro-life groups are coming from, because the very specific nature of abortion is such a major event. They're saying that there should be special regulations regarding this. In other words, for example, the GP would have to see the person.
Well, I'll just repeat what I said earlier on. I find that disingenuous because they spent years campaigning for us not to have access to abortion of any sort.
I understand, but
despite the fact that they knew, and it was proven and it was acknowledged by tens of thousands of women that they were taking the pill without any medicine. That's
rehashing the debate again. I don't want to get into that, but can you see their point regarding this being such an event and such a procedure that there could well be special regulations put in for this?
There could be special regulations put in for this, but again, I'll just go back to the point. The reason this is coming up is because of the question of the possible need for women to self-isolate who are facing a crisis pregnancy, and the absolute urgency of giving doctors as much space as possible to deal with this pandemic.
Breed Smith, thank you for joining us this morning.
Grand, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Breed Smith there. People Before Profit TD in Dublin. Let us know what you think. It's a very difficult issue. I'm not going to get into the debate this morning, but if any people have specific questions regarding that or specific points to make, please text us in 083 33 33 975. You can call Audrey on 051 846 123. There's some very good podcasts out at the minute. Deirdre has texted in to say that the first episode of A Hurler's Life by Brian Carroll is an interview with John Milan. I know our Matt Keane is doing some great podcasts regarding different historical sporting matters that are out there at the minute. A text in, Damien, would it be possible for me and my friend to go to each other's house for a few hours at night? We're both over 70 and we're finding it very hard. That's from Anne. And you've heard the doctor's advice, you've heard the government advice. Over 70s are supposed to stay at home. Now, that can't be, I suppose, enforced legally at present. It's up to each individual to take responsibility for that. I know so many people are finding it really difficult, and really, really difficult. And this is going to be, hopefully, just for the next 2 weeks, just till Friday week. So the advice is to stay at home. Another text, Damien, my wife is in her last Full weeks of pregnancy. I don't want to risk passing COVID-19 on to her. My work is staying open as it is essential. I don't believe it is essential. I need to know, is there a welfare payment for me even though my workplace hasn't closed? I know the Citizens Information Advice Bureau has information on that, and also Revenue has information on that. So I'm not going to say one way or the other if there is or not. I think you have to talk to people who are in the know, and that's the same advice that Dr. Rose said earlier regarding other specific matters that people have regarding medical issues. Good morning. Are there any dentists open today in Waterford City? Thank you, says this person. We'll find out. I know there are some open for emergency procedures, and there are others that are not closed. There's a lot of orthodontists that are closed as well. Another person is saying, Mary thinks that all the at-risk groups should be tested, whether they have symptoms or not, and all over 65s. Again, that's a very difficult thing to do. You're talking about tens of thousands of tests each day regarding that. That's what Mary has phoned in to say. Keep your texts and comments coming in, 083 33 975. Now, in a second, we're going to be talking to Dara Cassidy from bonkers.ie about how to save money in these difficult times. We've had a text in to say that the dentist in Durance Court is open. We understand. Another text, my sister lives within 2 kilometres. Husband is working away. Could I collect my niece at the gate and bring her for a walk and give her to her mother, give her mother a break? Again, the regulations are quite specific on the HSE website. If you want to have a look at that, you are allowed to go for a walk within 2 kilometres of your house. In terms of driving to and from other places, you are supposed to be only doing that to go shopping or for essential services, or if you're one of these workers that is in an essential service, and you're not supposed to be mixing with people from outside of your own specific immediate family. So I think everybody has to think of that themselves and work out how they're going to do that themselves. I can't give advice here on this in terms of something like that. Like, I don't want to be giving advice and somebody then saying to the guards, Damien Tiernan said it in WLR that it was okay to do it. I'm not going to do that. Dara Cassidy, good morning.
Good morning.
I think it's good to revert or refer to other people who know more and that are better paid to give advice and things like that, isn't it?
I think I'd agree. I definitely agree.
It's like talking to somebody who's an expert in a particular matter, like yourself, and you're the person to give the advice. It's up to us to get the people on air to give that advice out and let people make up their minds on what it is. Bonkers.ie, if anybody wants to check it out, a very good website. How to save up to $70,000 a year by being smart with your money and switching utility providers and mortgages. I was doing some research into this, Dara, and over the weekend, my understanding is that mortgage providers, particularly banks, are quite loath at present to give out new mortgages, I've been told, and what I've been reading. They can and will give mortgage deferrals for 3 months, as we know with the new government regulations and advice. But in terms of giving out a new mortgage now, because obviously the banks don't know how long this is going to last for those in specific workplaces. What's your read on this?
Well, no, you're right. I think everything is going to slow down, and unfortunately, the banking sector is the same. Now, it is down as being an essential service from the government, but certainly, if somebody is looking to buy a house, even just the practical things of viewing the house, going in to sign documents, lots of things like that would prove to be very, very difficult in light of the restrictions. But it looks, well, at the moment, the restrictions are lasting until the 12th of April, at least these ones. So, if somebody is in the mortgage journey, my advice to them would be, just keep in touch with your bank, keep up with the process as much as possible, and hopefully things will only be delayed by maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But certainly if you are a first-time buyer and, you were looking to get on the property ladder at some stage, and what's happening now is going to put a bit of a dent in that. But, we're all in this together, and hopefully within a few weeks' time, things will get back to some sense of normality.
Yes, I know a lot of insurance companies, a lot of mortgage providers, a lot of people working in financial services are now doing things differently that they wouldn't have done even a month ago. So, for example, if you did want to get in touch with a utility provider in terms of switching, if you wanted to talk about relocating your mortgage, a lot of this is now being done online and over the phone if you can get in touch with them.
It is, but I guess our point, so when we were doing this research and we found out that you could save up, there's 7,000 now that we said that you could maybe save, not 70,000. So unfortunately, we can't have, there's not that much on offer. But our point to listeners is that, quite often now, people are going to have a lot more time on their hands than they would have had beforehand. And even though people can't maybe switch right now, even though a lot of the call centres are still open, it's just taking a little bit longer for people to get through. But quite often when we ask people why they're not switching on their bills, people will say, oh, I didn't know, I don't have the time, I've been a little bit busy, or work has been busy. But now, really, a lot of us are going to probably find ourselves at home a lot more than we would have been before. And we're just asking people to use that newfound time at home, if it does apply to you, to go back over your finances, things like your broadband bill, your energy bill, your mortgage as well, your current accounts, all of those common household bills where you can save lots of money, and just take the time to review them and look at switching. It doesn't maybe necessarily have to be today or tomorrow, but in a few weeks' time when this is all over, that you'll be ready to go. Because, we were looking at bills and we said if somebody was to switch mortgage, I'll just go through some of them quickly, you could easily save over €200 a month. With energy supplier, you could save at the moment, the average person, around €432 a year. Broadband and TV provider could save around €49 a month. And even by switching your current account, you could save around €100 a year. Obviously, current account fees are very much in focus at the moment, as AIB had announced that it was going to increase some of its fees. Now, they've rode back on that slightly in light of COVID-19. But once this is all over, they'll probably look to increase those fees again. And then also health insurance is another thing as well. There's always savings to be made on health insurance. I know at the moment there's a lot of questions around health insurance because it has been almost made, the private sector has almost been assumed into the public sector. But that will change again once COVID-19 passes. And once again, people will need to look at their health insurance to see what they could save.
Yeah, it's a time where some people may be able to get some good bargains out there. That's what I'm hearing from you.
No, absolutely. But I think these bargains are almost always there. The problem is that people just often don't have the time to actually go and do it. But certainly there's particularly good value at the moment among some of the providers. So with broadband and TV, there's a lot of competition at the moment. With current accounts, there's always been, for the past year or so, good competition. There's now 10 current account providers in Ireland. So certainly when AIB, announced that it was going to increase its fees, there was a lot of feedback at bonkers.ie that people were just absolutely, so irate that this was happening, and they were asking who to switch to. And we were saying, there's now actually 10 providers, so there's never been more choice. With energy supplier, with the wholesale prices going down, there's a lot of competition there as well. Obviously, with energy, it's important now to switch and make sure that you're on the best tariff, because a lot of us are going to be spending a lot more time at home. We're going to have the electricity on, maybe even the heating on. So, usually at a time when we'd expect electricity bills and heating bills to fall slightly, with so many of us being at home over the coming days and weeks, people are probably going to get a shock when their energy bill comes in over the next 2 weeks. So, so switching and saving there, which is really, really quick and easy to do, is really, really advised to make sure that, your finances aren't even in a worse position in a few weeks' time. Yeah. And when it comes to switching mortgage, interest rates have never been lower. Unfortunately, in Ireland, they're still high by European standards, but they haven't been lower. And plus, a lot of banks will give cash back to those who switch. You could get a lump sum of maybe $2,000 or $3,000 as well.
Can I ask you, do you know, Dara, if utility companies are in a position to deal with customers in a nice way, so that if somebody does get a bill through the door in the next 2 weeks, or looks at their bank balance and see a standing order direct debit coming out, and they find it quite excessive, and they'll say, I can't really afford to pay all of this. Do you know if they're actually being compassionate in that?
So Virgin Media has come out and said that they will offer a 2-month moratorium on their bills, as far as I'm aware. So they've explicitly stated that if people are in financial difficulty, that they'll work with them. The other providers haven't been quite explicit. But, one thing I will say is that all of the providers, the banks, the telecommunication companies, everyone is stepping up to the plate more so than they would. I mean, we'd always say at bankers.ie, loyalty is seldom rewarded, and if you want the best deals, you should switch. But in fairness to a lot of the providers, they are looking out more so than they usually would for current customers. And if people are having issues, if people are falling behind on their payments, they should contact their provider as much as possible. Now, to be honest, a lot of these this assistance is there already. Regardless of COVID-19, there's often support for people who fall behind on their payments. But now the banks and the telecommunications companies are just being that little bit more explicit as to what sort of help they'll provide.
Yes.
But certainly, Fred, if someone's mortgage, the banks are offering a 3-month moratorium on mortgage payments. Although I would say to people, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and you'll end up paying more interest in the long run. But banks are giving a 3-month moratorium on interest payments. Like I said, Virgin Media is offering up to 2 months off. So, there's help out there for people who might be struggling. So don't be afraid to ring up your supplier as soon as possible and just tell them that you're struggling.
And we're going to be talking to somebody from the Irish League of Credit Unions in a second. Dara Cassidy, to you and your family, mind yourself, OK?
Thank you very much, you too.
Thanks very much. Dara Cassidy there from bonkers.ie. And bonkers.ie, you can save up to $7,000 a year, is what Dara is saying. If you have the time and the inclination to go and do something like this and actually spend the time having a look at your bills, having a look at other providers and what they're offering. And you may well say to yourself, OK, let's give an hour to this later on today or tomorrow to sit down and see if we can do this. A lot of texts coming in. Damien says, Vincent, you must have the patience of a saint. People keep asking the same questions over and over again. Vincent, that's my job, and it's my job to inform and educate and entertain as much as possible as well. Somebody's texted in, is the airport in Waterford still open? Are there flights still coming in? Private flights from the UK? I presume, says this person, that people are being checked in terms of where they're coming from. A special message from Liam. Nellie Walsh, his mother in Queen Street in Portlaw, is 97 tomorrow. She never misses Mass, and now she has to get Mass on FaceTime. Everyone is communicating with her. Her sister logs her in. So a special happy birthday to Nellie, who's going to be 97 tomorrow. John O'Shea, his times that he is doing his shows on WR have been changed slightly. So there was a request in for Alfie Egan from Castleville and Tommy and Eddie Lenahan, Dungarvan, and John Dunn for a request. So I just said I'd say hello to them this morning in case we don't get to that. Can you please play a big thank you to my friend and neighbour Annette and all our colleagues at the CSSD in the hospital who are playing a vital part in all this. Stay safe and well, and that is in from Marion. Keep your texts and comments coming in. If I don't get to all of them, I'll try and make a representation of them as well in terms of some of the matters we are dealing with. Next, the issue of money and money lenders. Now, keep your texts and comments coming in. In a minute, I am going to be talking to Paul Bailey from the Irish League of Credit Unions. If you have any questions you want to text in, Paul, please do 083 3333 975. A texter, I'm supposed to have my NCT tomorrow. Are they open? My understanding is that NCT tests have been suspended for present. We'll confirm that in a second. And here's an interesting one from a West Waterford listener. I'd like to know where is the fairness in this. I'm 70, very outgoing. I love walking and cycling every day. Yesterday, I saw my neighbour, who's over 80, driving his tractor and farm and working. So I'm not allowed out, but he's allowed out to drive his tractor. There's a good one for you now. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Damien.
That's a good one, isn't it?
It is indeed.
That'd be quite annoying if you're, you want to get out and you can see somebody who's 10 years older out working and you're thinking, so unless you want to buy a tractor, that could be one way around it. Would the Irish League of Credit Unions give money for tractors?
Of course, we give money for anything, as long as the person can repay us.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. There is a very, very important point in this, Paul. Money lenders are doing leaflet drops, not just in Waterford, but in other areas of the country. People have to be very careful not to be duped into dealing with these money lenders.
Exactly. I mean, I was talking to a local radio station there in Galway on Friday, and the very same issue came up, that money lenders are doing leaflet drops around housing estates in Galway as well. And we understand in Waterford, we've been hearing anecdotally from members that that's happening as well. So I suppose our message to people is not to be tempted by money lenders. Even the legal ones charge up to 189% on interest on loans. So you need to be really, really careful. And I'd urge people to go to their credit union in the first instance, talk to their credit union. Credit unions have been there for the last 60 years for people. We were founded back in the late 50s, high unemployment, high immigration in Ireland, very poor economic times, and that's why it was founded, to give people, ordinary people, access to credit, and we're still doing that 60 years later.
In terms of dealing with credit unions at present, I know a lot of the phone lines have been inundated with calls. Credit unions are still open, or are they closed, or what is the situation?
Well, they're still open. We got clarification again at the weekend from the government that credit unions are still considered an essential service. So credit unions around the country are staying open as much as possible. But what we're urging people to do in the first instance is to phone their credit union, or email, or contact them through their website online to see, can they transact over the phone, can they transact online. A lot of credit unions now have facilities online where you can do your financial transactions, apply for your loans. But if you need to talk to somebody about a forbearance measure in relation to your loan, if you've been temporarily unemployed as a result of COVID-19 and you're not in a position to pay your loan, there may be a possibility talking to your credit union of a loan holiday, or interest only, or some other plan that suits you and suits the credit union. So the key message is talk first before coming into the office. If you do need to come into the office, an appointment will be made, and someone will give you a time in that.
And in terms of coming into the office, we've had texts from so many different workers this morning and employees of different groups, and they're saying and asking, like, we've seen all these protective screens up at shops and all different types of shops. What about your staff? Have you got protective screens up in front and around your staff at every credit union in the country?
Some credit unions, well, I can't answer for every credit union in the country, but I do know some credit unions have the screens up. Others have them on order. Others are taking other precautions, for example, social distancing on the floor and outside the office, on the footpath outside, 2 metre distances.
But you know yourself, can I just ask you, Paul, you know yourself, if you want to talk to somebody about a personal matter relating to your finance, you'll want to lean in. You don't want to be shouting and other people hearing about it. And then also, I presume, the staff member would be a bit reluctant to bring somebody into an office and be potentially within 2 metres of them.
Yes, no, I agree. But there are credit unions have arrangements in place to either talk over the phone or talk within an office where there is a banded screen. So there will be, each credit union will have a system in place that suits them and suits their members. Obviously, credit unions will want to protect their staff, and at this stage, can I give a shout out to all the staff around the country?
Yes.
They're doing fantastic work, those staff in the credit unions. They're working tirelessly and on a professional way, on a friendly way, on a daily basis, as they always do. And just to shout that out, but just to say again, there will be arrangements in place. Nobody's going to take any chances here, Damien. You can rest assured. Some credit unions, for example, who normally open on a Saturday, are now not opening, so that they can do a deep clean and make sure that they're adhering to all the guidelines from the HSE.
Yes. Also,
some credit unions are opening. Especially for older and vulnerable members, that might have an hour a day for that, or an hour every second day. I came across one in Galway last week that are opening from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9:30 to facilitate healthcare workers going to work or coming from work, to allow them the space and privacy to do their business. So there are arrangements in place. It's a case of just ringing and contacting, and letting people know.
Paul Bailey, thank you so much, and to you and all your staff in every credit union around the country, mind yourself, OK?
Thanks, David.
Thanks very much. Paul Bailey there from the Irish League of Credit Unions. As you've heard, money lenders are going around looking for victims. So if you've got any experience with money lenders, please text us in. And you heard the advice there from Paul, and others have been saying it as well. Just be very, very careful about doing any deals with anybody calling to your door regarding money lending. Good morning, Damien. I went shopping this morning. Little cashiers still need to be learning a lot more. A lot of them not sanitising gloves after handing cash before the next customers. Trolley bays at some supermarkets, says this person, have no sanitiser for the handles. Lidl, for example, do have it, but it's inside the shop. This, to me, is pointless, given that when you pick a trolley up, you contaminate your clean hands. Even if you clean the trolley inside the shop, you decontaminate it with your hands. People walking past any signs in any store when it says stop, they should stop and they should sanitise your hands. Could you get an environmental health officer on to explain basic hygiene, please? Yes, we've done some of that and we're going to do more of that during the week. It is so important, and people still don't realise that wearing these gloves, it doesn't stop you. You have to wash your hands. You have to wash your hands. Good morning. I know somebody renting a commercial property, but he shut down due to his business. And there was a difficulty getting issues such as this. There will be a lot of other businesses such as hairdressers, beauty therapists and many more going out of business. What can we do about it? Damien, could you please say a special thank you to Bim Connors for making these hard times a little bit brighter. He's going live on Facebook the past 3 weeks for over 2 hours. A little bit of music always makes things better. That's from Mary. I was watching some of them last night, Mary. I'd agree with you. Really good show. And for others that are doing productions as well, special mention to all those involved in the choirs in Waterford. There was a lovely piece with Wayne Brown on Facebook on Friday night, and well done to Brian and Susan Walsh, the Waterford producers with Highlight TV, for doing that excellent programme. Good morning, Damien. I have COPD and asthma. I live with 11 people. 4 of them are children under 5. How am I going to isolate if anything happens to me? I don't have room for my children to sleep. So where does that leave me? I'm really frightened if I catch a cold. I'm at high risk. What am I to do? Very difficult situation. I know the council have been dealing with different situations of people that are at specific high risk, and you've seen in Dublin that some hotels are being made available for some people. I don't know if that's the situation here. We'll try and find out for you.